So let's talk about the input system. Here we're going to do a lot of learning about QC and pistons and sticky pistons. But first, so you want your input to be something like pressure plates or buttons, and you want that to turn into an on when a pressure plate triggers, then when it triggers again, turn it back off. So that's a toggle. So an easy way to generate that is have a sticky piston spit out its blocks. So if you have a redstone block and a sticky piston here, we need to shorten the pulse to make it spit out its block. So we'll create a short little monostable here. And now where do we want the pressure plates? Let's say we have a line of pressure plates up here. Should I make them visible or not? I'll make them visible for now, because you can make them spruce to hide them. Okay, so let's get the wire under that. We want the redstone line going right under these for our input. Grab my redstone back. Cool. So now every time the pressure plate triggers, this redstone line powers this block and this block, so the piston here. So that starts to power the repeater, and then the block extends, and so it cuts off any more power to this repeater. Then that sticky piston receives the short pulse and spits out the block. So there we go. Piston only received a short pulse. This power is still on. This turned on. Get off the pressure plate, that turned off. Step back on the pressure plate. Piston pulls its block back. And if I lengthen this, just to prove a point, you can see it just barely pulses it. Amazingly, that didn't break the door. Okay, but yeah, so one tick. Now you will notice something. There's a tiny bit of delay between this redstone line turning on and this redstone line turning on. Just a little bit of delay there. Here, I used a trick that makes it have no delay. You can watch this. Instant. Instant. So this is using 0 ticks, so well, and a bunch of QC. So we'll get into that now. This is like just a basic system. If you want to wire up other inputs, you can easily do that, like having a button below. Guess I'll get into QC in a second. If you want to have a button below here, just to like close the door or something, you can wire that up just like this into the front before the monostable right here. Make sure this redstone dust is pointing into this block. Okay. Yep. Still works. Okay, so now, what is quasi-connectivity? And it plays a little bit of a role here, but let's get into that. So, quasi-connectivity affects these 4 blocks: dispenser, dropper, sticky piston, and piston. And so when we power something, oops, I wanted that red glass, stained glass. When a block powers something, I think I mentioned this in the last video, we had stated that it powers the 6 blocks around it like this. Now, a piston will receive power. Why did I do that? Will receive power from any of these sides, but not the front face. If I put a redstone block here, that does not make the piston extend, but above it, it does. So that's like basic. But now QC or quasi-connectivity affects these 4 blocks: dispenser, dropper, piston, and sticky piston. And what it means is that along with the being able to be powered from the blocks around it, except the face for a piston, whatever side the piston head is, it can also be powered around the blocks above it. Oops. Well, so that would include all of these as well. But most power sources, or a lot of power sources, won't give updates more than just that sphere around them. So the piston may be powered, but it won't always receive updates. So some common uses is with, I'll just use a dropper here. If you had like a note block and an observer here, the observer is powering the block above it, but that will still power the dropper. The repeater, again, powers the block above it, and the comparator powers the block above it. That works. These, because they're close enough, will send updates. Also, redstone on like a slab, for example. With a solid block, it would power through the solid block, but with a slab, it's powering the air block above, and that works. And again, if you redirect it, it has to be pointing that way, so redirecting would not work. Now, if you are powering it with a solid block, whether that's a observer like this, or maybe redstone dust like this, it's not receiving the update. It's getting powered, but there's nothing to update it. So we can add like an activator rail, powered rail, or a note block, or another piston or sticky piston on the block above it, so that this, when this gets powered, it'll send the updates to the blocks around it, giving it an update. So like that would work. Or you could put a piston down here, oops, like that. That would update it. It powers it here, but gets the update from down here, or from this block. It's kind of an interesting quirk. And yeah, note blocks are a quite typical one. Now, when you have a line of pistons, if you had a line of pistons like this, and we'll put the update here, this piston is getting powered from above diagonally from this block. This piston is powering above diagonally from this block. This piston's above from this block as well, this block, this block. This piston actually is close enough that it receives an update from the block, or the dust itself, which then updates this piston, which then updates this piston, updates this piston, updates this piston, updates this piston. So they all move at the same time, but the update chain is coming from way over there, even though the power's coming from here per se. So if I break that, you can see these all update, but this one is not getting an update. Also, the piston head itself can update it, but yeah, no, but yeah, cool. I think that's all I wanted to get there. The second thing is, oh wait, no, applying that first is this. When this is on, let me just grab a lever. Why does this piston stay extended? Well, technically, because there's a block here. And it powers the repeater because the dust is going through the top block. But this also would work with an up slab. Same thing, because the piston is getting QC powered through the top. But that doesn't matter. Okay. So now, let's work on this. So we have our piston here, blocks behind it, and first one cuts off the signal. Second one powers it, or unpowers it. Okay, so blocks here. What this is doing is when this top line turns on, first this piston extends, powered through this block. Then this block starts getting pushed and turns on this wire. Then that updates this piston, which is getting QC powered, which then updates this sticky piston, which is also getting QC powered. And then that moves this block and turns off the redstone. So in just 2 piston updates, I'll call it, there's a better name for that, but within just 2 piston updates, this dust line turns on and off the exact same time that this line turns on. That's a 0 tick. This piston extends, or starts to extend, but then the moment this turns off, it immediately finishes the extension, leaves the redstone block here, and starts the retraction. The extension phase is just completely skipped. And yeah. So one misconception first that I want to get out of the way is that these blocks kind of disappear when they're in transport. Blocks only exist within the block grid. They can't exist between these 2 positions. When a piston pushes a block, like I'll put some dust here, when the piston pushes it, take freeze, okay, freeze the game, power, step a tick. This is not a redstone block anymore. It's a moving piston head technically, but it's a transparent block that does not really have the states that it has. So when it's moving, it won't power, the redstone block won't power the dust. And also when a solid block here normally cuts off dust, when it's moving, it becomes transparent and will no longer cut off dust until it finishes moving and it places back down. Now it'll cut dust again. When it's not in the block grid, it becomes a transparent block, which will not cut dust and will not power dust. Okay, to demonstrate over here, when let's remove this temporarily, just have it powered. And tick freeze. Now if I step one tick, the same tick that this dust turns on, this dust also turns on. Because the piston starts extending, the block leaves the block grid instantly, becomes transparent, and the dust travels through. Yeah, that's good. Then this piston updates and this redstone block starts extending. And so that turns off the dust line because the moment it starts extending, it leaves the block grid. And it starts extending the instant it's powered. And there we go, spat the block behind. Okay, so that's a simple zero tick generator. We have our instant toggle using the zero tick. So now let's show this. Doink. It's like the instant you step on the pressure plate, the door starts moving, like instantly. Yeah, yeah. I should have looked at the old one. Here, let's rebuild the old one quickly. Slower toggle in here. You can see it takes just a bit of delay. And I'll show it by jumping in. It looks a little slower. It's still really fast. With this one, it's so much faster. It's not really that much faster, but it's cool. Okay. Now, let's get into this. So, I cut all this off. One last thing is that these target blocks look ugly. And there's actually a way to power the pistons without using the target blocks there. So earlier, I'll start over here. We said we had to use the target blocks because that redirects the dust into the wall. But using QC, we can actually power them a block above. And so it can look something like this. Oops. Where, and we split the current and connect it over here. So now there's this pointing into this block and this dust pointing into the block above. And I'll prove it works quickly and then we'll go over there and explain it. So before, we were powering from the bottom with dust through the bottom with a target block. And that works. If we flick this lever, you can see that extends the piston. If you power it from above, through the solid block above, it does QC power the piston, but it has nothing to update it. So we could send it an update a different way, but we actually don't need to, because when it moves, it also receives an update. Whoops, I need to block down here. again, so when it moves, it leaves the block grid as it's transitioning positions, turns into the moving piston block. But when it comes back, when it places down in this position in the block grid, it actually receives an update. And so right now it does not extend, but if we power it, if we power it after it's extended, it doesn't do anything. But if we power it before it moves over, before it arrives, then when it arrives, it receives an update and realizes it's powered from here. And it extends. Now, there's another interesting thing, is that the piston head itself will actually send an update signal to the piston base. The piston base is what needs to get powered or unpowered. So the piston base being QC powered. When I turn off the power here, the piston head updates the piston base to unpower. And here we retract it. And it's now just to show that in one complete thought here. We can connect these. So when I power this, piston extends. And when I unpower it, that unpowers too early, so we can add a bit of delay here. 2 ticks again. Redstone ticks. Power on, it extends, gets the update from when it arrives. Power off, little delay, pulls it back. So now we can use that over here. I say so now a lot, don't I? Okay. We can use that over here. Power the block above with one dust, power the block below with another dust. And now also note that we came out and back in. Before it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We added 2 blocks of distance since we went out and came back in. So we have to move our power source. I guess I can just power this as I did last time. It makes it easier. Yoink. Huh. It doesn't even reach all the way around. Well, okay, we need to power it there. It's good to know. And we need to fix this. So to fix it quite easily, just remove all these blocks that are in the corners. I already did that, and then we can pull these down. Those are sticking. And don't do that. Do not copy that. Okay. Yeah, just power it, unpower it. It should work. Beautiful. Now, we need to power this block here. And this one will also increase by 2. So we need to power that block there. Okay. Now, because we need to power this redstone dust here, and this redstone dust somewhere over here, I think. This is a block extra, but it's easier to build this way. It's a lot easier just to use 2 toggle pistons. And so that works. Now we got to rebuild up the pressure plate circuit. This time I'll hide it because it looks cooler. And under the pressure plates, we build our line of redstone. Here it cuts off, so we add a slab. And now it connects, so we add a block. And over here, we add our zero-tick generator. One piston on the line, one piston below the line of blocks. Redstone block, solid block, dust. And run it into that block. And we can bring this line up. Nope, not that early. There we go. So now the bottom button's connected in and the top pressure plates work. Very clean and very fast. Said that too early. There we go. There we go. Oh, and one other thing over here is if you power a QC block, one of those four, from above with a solid block, it looks like it works pretty well normally, but it also powers one more diagonally, and you gotta kind of remember that. This is what I meant. Because this powers that block above the piston, powers the block above this piston. This bottom piston gives the updates out to the sides. So this does not just power the piston below it. If you want to only power the piston below it, you can use a transparent block. So like having dust on it like this would work. Or you can move the block one higher, have dust on that, or maybe power that with a repeater. It doesn't get an update though, so you can use like a note block here to send the update down, and that won't move any of the other pistons. Also like that. And also this would work diagonally as well. This only powers that one piston. I don't know if this is worth showing, but if you put the updater block on this side or on this side, this just kind of shows you which one updated first, because the first piston to move will put a moving piston head block here and block the other one from extending. Since the update is on this side, this piston gets updated first, which updates this piston, update, update. This one gets updated a lot later. So this piston moves first. If we put that on this side instead, oops, it doesn't really matter. Just, yeah, this one moves first. Oh, and the trick here that I did is you first place redstone block over there. So now this one is quasi-powered, but not updated. This one is no longer quasi-powered, but not updated either. And so when you update that with maybe placing a button on the piston head here, button will break off and it'll update. Yep. Okay. Cool. Pretty cool. If you want to learn more about zero ticks and sticky pistons and stuff like that, Ilmango has a lot of great videos teaching that. I'll try and link those in the description. Okay, well, I gotta go edit this now. See ya.